And now I'd like to introduce who will be facilitating today's presentation, Brittany Novick, Adriana Negron, and Celeste Perry, with the presentation Dolphin Doctor on the front lines of marine mammal medicine. So with that, I'd like to hand it off to the team of facilitators.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for having us. We're really excited about this because we've been working hard over the past few years to develop all of our educational materials and specifically make things available to educators. So we work with an organization called the National Marine Mammal Foundation. And our mission is to improve and protect life for marine mammals, humans, and our oceans through science, service, and education. So what this means is that we, of course, care about marine mammals and we do everything that we can to learn about them and protect them. But we know that what affects humans and our environment also impacts marine mammals as well. So it's kind of all connected, and we call this the concept of One Health. So that's why we bring all those things into our research and into what we do, including our education program. So we have a strong interest in providing the information about the research that we're doing to our community, which is why we're here today. So who are we? My name is Celeste Perry. I'm from here in San Diego, and I went to UC San Diego and studied marine biology. And I've been working with the foundation for about 10 years now. And I have just started taking on doing all of our education and outreach stuff. So I'm really excited to take the things that I've learned and translate them to be able to help you use them in your classroom. Brittany?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Brittany. I am also with the National Marine Mammal Foundation, common theme. I have worked for the foundation for about 7 years now. I'm originally from Cleveland, Ohio. I went to Bowling Green State University, studied marine and aquatic biology and chemistry. I really wanted to do coral restoration, and now I do dolphin things. So, you know, life just takes us down some unexpected paths sometimes, but I love doing the education and outreach. My full-time position, I actually work in the vet hospital. So this program is one of my near and dear to my heart. Everything we're going to talk to you guys about today kind of helped to really develop it and grow it to what it is. So I'm happy to be sharing it and all of its materials with you. Adriana?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Adriana, and I was born and raised in a little island in the Caribbean called Puerto Rico. When I graduated at the age of 18, I actually did a really big transition and moved to the state of Iowa and got my bachelor's degree in animal ecology with a pre-vet and wildlife care option, thinking that I was going to go down the veterinary route. But then I found out, as you will find out in this presentation, that there is so many other careers that you are able to do in the marine mammal world. And then I transitioned to be a marine mammal trainer, including dolphins and seals and sea lions. My journey with the foundation started about a year ago as a trainer for the Navy Marine Mammal Program, which we'll be talking a little bit about throughout this presentation. And since then, I have transitioned to the education and outreach team, educating everyone how amazing and necessary it is to conserve our planet. So have fun, guys.
Yeah, and we have Dr. Barrett Claw actually joining us later. When we signed up for this program, we were told that a lot of you guys as teachers have students and get questions about people who want to be vets. And so Ashley unfortunately had another commitment saving endangered species, and so she could not be here today, but we have a video from her, so she'll be joining us at the end.
All right, thank you so much. So, what we're gonna talk about today is a little bit about marine mammals and their adaptations to living in their ocean environment. Some of the threats that marine mammals face, specifically oil spills and noise pollution, because those are some of the things that we study at the foundation. And then we're gonna review some of the endangered marine mammals and what we can do to help protect them. Okay, but first of all, you guys might be wondering, why marine mammals? right? It seems like a very specific thing to present about at a teacher conference. Well, there are a couple of reasons that we believe that marine mammals are a perfect way to help engage students. And one of them is just that they're very recognizable, charismatic animals. Most people have heard of dolphins and sea lions, and maybe you saw them at the beach, maybe you have gone to a theme park and seen them, but they are recognizable and people have an immediate reaction to them. And part of that is that they're mammals that live in the ocean, right? There aren't that many animals that live in the ocean that breathe air like we do and have to come to the surface and share many of the traits that we have, including how intelligent we are. Most people have heard that dolphins, have the second biggest brain size compared to humans. And so there's a lot that makes them very relatable. However, many species of marine mammals are endangered, and that's largely due to human activity, but they serve as sentinels of environmental health hazards in our ocean. So what that means is that because they are so similar to us in many ways, we can learn a lot from marine mammals about what might happen to humans and how the health of the oceans can impact us as well. So for all of those reasons, we put together this workshop so that we can help you incorporate more marine mammal activities in your classroom. So a little bit more about who we are and why we're here in San Diego. One of the many things that the National Marine Mammal Foundation does is that we support the work of the U.S. Navy Marine Mammal Program, which is located here in San Diego in Point Loma. So we have a large team of people, including veterinarians, animal trainers, scientists, all types of people that come together and have been working on this program for over 70 years now to learn more about these animals and what they do in the oceans. And so this large amount of knowledge, we're able to turn around and translate that to how we can help wild marine mammals. And we have a lot of examples throughout the presentation about how this really in-depth knowledge, especially about their veterinary care, helps us protect wild marine mammals. And this all started with the president of our foundation. His name is Dr. Sam Ridgway. He is known as the father of marine mammal medicine because he was one of the very first veterinarians who ever worked with dolphins. And he wrote this book about his experience in the early 1960s of trying to work with these animals that really nothing was known about as far as their physiology and their medicine. Okay, so what are some of the things that he learned and that he has passed down through the foundation over the years? Well, marine mammals are very well adapted to living in their ocean environment. And like I said, they are mammals like us, so they breathe air, they're warm-blooded, they have hair, they give live birth. So all of those things are not very easy to do in the water. And so they have had to develop really unique adaptations to living in the ocean. For sea lions specifically, they have really good underwater vision, even in low light, because you can't see very far underwater, especially compared to air. So they have great low light vision. They can dive very, very deep. And then they have sensitive underwater directional hearing. So when people go underwater, usually you can hear noises all around you, but you can't tell where they're coming from because our ears and our brains are adapted to process the sound signals through the air. But sound actually moves 4 times faster underwater than in the air. And so sea lions have adapted to be able to tell direction even underwater using sound. A lot of people wonder what's the difference between a sea lion and a seal. Here in San Diego, you can see California sea lions and harbor seals most often. So they actually have a lot of differences. One of the ones that is most visible is that sea lions have ear flaps, sort of like us, whereas seals don't. They just have little holes on the side of their head where their ears are. Another difference is that sea lions can turn their flippers forward so that they can walk on them. So this is like if you've ever seen the sea lion show at a theme park, they walk all over the stage and they can run on land or swim in the water, versus seals can't do that. So when they come up on the beach, they kind of just have to flop around and they look kind of like a little fat worm flopping around on the sand. And then sea lions make a loud bark, which you'll hear if you go down to any harbor or wharf, whereas seals make a smaller sound that sounds more like a little mew or cry. So those are some of the differences. So next time you're at the beach, you can keep an eye out and see if you can see either the seals or sea lions. So what about dolphins? Dolphins are also very uniquely adapted to live in the water. Part of that is that they maintain their body temperature at a very similar state that we do, around 98 degrees. That's not easy to do in the water because the water sucks out your energy real fast. So they have a lot of adaptations to be able to do that, including a thick layer of blubber. And they also have special ways of circulating their blood to keep the warmth in the core of their body. They also are able to regulate their buoyancy. So besides having really big lungs to take giant breaths, they can actually collapse their rib cage when they dive down. So that air becomes much, much smaller under pressure, but their rib cage can fold in so that it doesn't just collapse from all the pressure around them. And then that thick layer of blubber also helps maintain their buoyancy. And then of course, they're really hydrodynamic. So their body shape creates minimal drag in the water, and their shape has been studied for decades to design ships and submarines. So we have a few activities available at our website to help teach students about all these wonderful things about dolphins and sea lions specifically. So this is a worksheet for a coloring page and worksheet for younger kids. It just helps them identify the different parts of the animal's body and compare them. And you can see throughout the presentation, wherever we have activities, we've included examples of the next generation science standards that this would apply to. So specifically, this one is a kindergarten level life science standard that can apply to this worksheet. There are probably other ones, but we picked the ones that were most suitable to the age range and the topic. Here's another activity that we have that might be for slightly older kids. So we have kind of like a paper doll activity where they can cut out the shapes of the different fins and glue them on where they belong, and a crossword puzzle. And last but not least, dolphins have a very special sixth sense. It's called echolocation. And it's a type of underwater sonar. So they create clicks in their nasal passages that go and are directed through their melon. They bounce off all the things in their environment, just like an echo does. And they are able to sense those noises through their lower jaw and ear. And this dolphin sonar works better than any machine that exists. They can find something as small as a pea on the bottom of the ocean. So it's really impressive. So I'm going to show you a video right now that's of a dolphin echolocating. So you'll be able to watch the dolphin and just listen for how the clicks change as the dolphin gets closer to the fish that she's looking for. So there's no sound right now, but essentially this is a Navy dolphin. So she's swimming behind the ship to where they're going to go out and look for the fish. And when they get to their spot, her trainer is going to attach a camera to her so that we can see what she's doing underwater. This is just your standard GoPro camera, but listen for the echolocation click. And the clicks get closer together as she gets closer to the fish. She also lets out a whistle when she gets close. Okay, so that's just a great example of how dolphins use echolocation to find things in their environment, especially when they can't see very far. So this is a really important point, that sound travels so much better underwater than it does in air. It actually moves 4 times faster, so it can go much farther. So marine mammals rely on sound for almost every aspect of their life. And to summarize all the things, they use it to hunt. So they need to find their food, right? They use it to navigate through their environment. So they need to find where they're going and understand their environment. And then they use it to communicate. So they need to find other animals that are like them. And there's some examples of blue whales that use their songs to communicate thousands and thousands of miles apart. So that is why it's so important that we study not only the noises that they make, but how they perceive sound underwater. And this study is what we call bioacoustics. So that's a big part of what we do at the National Marine Mammal Foundation is we have a whole bioacoustics program. And you can see in these pictures that we work with animals that are trained to be able to tell us what they hear. So you can see the sea lions wearing headphones, but essentially you can play them noises and the animals are able to tell you with their behavior what they hear. And we can take this information about their hearing range and then apply that to helping marine mammals in the wild with things like reducing background ocean noise and creating regulations for how loud things can be in the ocean because we understand their hearing range. So this is another video. This is an example more of how we study their echolocation and the noises that they put out. Like, how do we know the range of their echolocation and how it works? And the answer is that we put an array of hydrophones underwater. So a hydrophone is just an underwater microphone. And if we put a bunch of them underwater, then we can test, hey, how does their echolocation sounds just go out everywhere, or can they focus them very directly? So here's an example of how we would be able to learn that.
Celeste, you're muted.
Oh, so you can see that the dolphin went underwater and lined up on a very specific location and was echolocating, and then they are able to measure those noises. So one of the biggest threats to marine mammals around the world is noise pollution. Most people don't think of pollution, that it can be noises, but this is a big deal in the oceans. And it's just for the reasons that I mentioned, that marine mammals rely on sound for every aspect of their well-being. And so as humans, we're putting a lot of noise into the ocean, from shipping and to sonar use and to underwater drilling and things like that. It creates a very, very noisy ocean, which makes it much harder for marine mammals to communicate and to find food and do all the things that they need to do. So we use a couple activities. Most of these are activities you can find examples of on the internet, but we've found that they work really well for teaching kids about sound and how it works. So the first one is as simple as just taking a spoon and tying a string to it. So if you bang a spoon on a table, you can hear the noise that it makes, right? If you take that same spoon and tie a string on the end and put the string up to your ears, kind of your lower jaw and your ears, and do it again, you can tell that the sound you perceive it much differently. It sounds a lot different. And that's just an example of how the vibrations move through the spoon, but if they go directly through the string to your ears, that you can hear those sounds in a different way. Another thing you can do is with wine glasses, put water in the wine glasses, rub your finger around the top edge, and the vibrations from your finger moving on the crystal create a noise. But you can actually demonstrate this by having a toothpick in another one and have the two not touching each other, but the toothpick will actually vibrate just from the vibrations from the sound moving through the air. Another activity is making a noisemaker using just a cup and a string and a paper clip. So you run your hand along the string really fast, and the vibrations make the whole cup vibrate and make this really loud noise that kind of sounds like a chicken. So it's really fun, but be ready for a loud classroom. This activity, all of these and all of these learnings about echolocation can help students gather and synthesize information that sensory receptors respond to stimuli by sending messages to the brain for immediate behavior or storage as memories. So those are some great activities for learning about bioacoustics and about our senses in general. For older students, we have a worksheet that asks them to analyze a graph that displays a sound wave, and there's some activities that go with that. All right, so we talked a little bit about adaptations and bioacoustics and underwater noise. We're going to switch gears now to endangered animals around the world, and I'm going to hand it over to Brittany.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for sticking with us. So yeah, so even though Celeste is going to keep clicking for me, so just bear with us. But yeah, we at the National Marine Mammal Foundation, because we work so closely with animals, we're also able to study them on a global scale. And one of the big things that we've done is study the dolphins that were impacted by the 2010 Deepwater Horizon oil spill, which is one of the largest oil spills in history. We're actually coming up on the anniversary on April 20th. It was in 2010. A lot of you probably remember millions and millions of gallons spilled into the Gulf. And obviously it impacted the coastal ecosystem and the animals that live there. And so it was our job to go out and study the impacts of this oil spill on the dolphins. And there's a whole series of movies surrounding it that we'll talk about a little later. But we found that this is something that students kind of relate to, you know, oil spills, and especially now with clean energy and things like that. It's just in the news and in the media. Go ahead, Celeste. So we do a lot of different activities surrounding this oil spill. One of the things that we do, we offer programs. We come visit classrooms as the foundation, and we can actually walk your students through a dolphin checkup, or how we would do a health assessment on a wild dolphin. So we talk to them about where you draw blood from on a dolphin, right? In humans, it's in your arm. We talk about how, you know, when you go to the doctor, you get your measurements, and they, you know, if you go to the dentist, they take dental x-rays. We do all of that on dolphins. So it's kind of cool because it's just challenging the students to think about things that they normally wouldn't think about. You're just like, oh yeah, you do health assessments on a dolphin, but then you ask them, how do you do that? And they're like, oh, never thought about that before. So that is one of the programs that we can actually come to your classroom and work with your students. But there's some activities that you guys can do right in your own classrooms. And one of them is basically simulating an oil slick. So I'm just going to show you a quick example of how you can apply that.
Oil and water, they do not mix. The oil will float to the top because it's less dense than the water, and it'll form a slick on the surface. This is really bad for animals. It ends up in their fur. A lot of ocean animals can't survive this way. Birds and things, they can't fly if their wings are bogged down by lots of oil. It's also bad for plants, other kinds of marine life, and just water health in general. So we're going to go through a couple different techniques, and I want you guys to observe the pros and cons of each of these different techniques. We're going to add in our oil to our ocean here. And oil is very thick. As you can see, it's not mixing at all. It's kind of bubbling up, floating to the surface. Now, our first technique that we're going to talk about that scientists use is something called a dispersant. Now this is some sort of soapy solution that acts as something called a surfactant. So that means it decreases the surface tension of the oil. It helps beat up the oil and spread it out. So we're going to go ahead and add some in and make some observations. What do you notice? What happens when I pour in the soapy solution? It kind of makes the oil beat up and spread out over a larger surface area. So this is good because it helps move oil over a large area. It helps dilute it. This is very fast. It helps clean animals. So they use dish soap like this to help clean birds and other critters that are impacted by oil spills. But the downside is it doesn't actually remove the oil. It just kind of spreads it out. So again, there's pros and cons to each of these techniques.
So, and that's just one example. So if you click to the next slide, Celeste.
So
Maybe.
oil and
There we are. So you can actually talk to your students. You know, an intro to this is kind of how scientists and conservationists clean up oil spills in real life. There's lots of different ways. You know, there's literally just flushing the shoreline. We use booms, which are kind of like big barriers to just kind of contain the oil spill. They literally use vacuums, sorbents to absorb the oil, cleaners and biodegradable agents, literally burning the oil that's on the surface, and then just manual removal, whether it's with big machines and trucks or literally just people shoveling it out. So these are all different ways in real life that we clean up oil spills, but you can simulate all of these things right in your classroom. So go ahead, Celeste. So you can maybe simulate a few oil spills throughout your classroom, break your students into groups and give each of them a tool or two, or have them work as a group and be like, which of these works better than another, or what did you share with the class, what you found, why your solution worked or didn't work. And it's just kind of a really good way for students to physically try and clean up an oil spill. You can use sponges, yarns that act as booms. You can have them just do manual removal, like with a syringe. You can use the dish soap example. So it's just kind of a fun activity that allows the students to kind of brainstorm, if we were trying to clean up an oil spill, how would we go about it right in your classroom? Go ahead, Celeste. And then another fun activity you can do is using feathers. And this video kind of walks you through it, but essentially talking to your students about impacts on birds. So you can take a feather, and this could be a fun opportunity to get your students outside. Everyone goes outside to try and find some feathers to use, and you dip it in water, and you can see, or sprinkle water on it, and you can see that the feathers will repel the water. But then you dip the feather into an oil slick, right, an oil solution, and then dip it into water, and you can see what happens to the feather once they're impacted by an oil spill. Go ahead, Celeste. This is a really quick, just to.
All you will need is a feather. You may find one from something you have at home, or perhaps you'll find one outside. A brush or a toothbrush, some water, some oil, and some dish detergent. It can be any kind of dish detergent. Now your experiment today is going to be to dip that feather in the water and see if it absorbs or if it repels the water. After you test it in the water, test the feather in the oil. See if it absorbs the oil or if it repels the oil. And then test it again in the water and see if after dipping it in the oil, if the feather is able to absorb or repel the water. And last, after you've tested it again in the water, use the dish detergent to try to clean the feather, and then test it again in fresh water to see if it now repels or attracts the water.
So that's just kind of a way to get your students to think critically, make observations, and just kind of encourages them to get outside and think critically about something that they hear about all the time. Go ahead, Celeste.
All you will need is a feather.
Stop that. There we go. So this is actually something that we're really excited to share with you guys. So we talked about the Deepwater Horizon oil spill, and there is actually a whole series of movies called Dispatches from the Gulf. Dispatches from the Gulf 1, 2, and 3. Adriana is going to drop it in the chat. You can actually get these movies for free as an educator. And not only can you get the movies for free to share in your classroom, and it talks about, there's a marine mammal component, but it also talks about the deep sea and what happened to the deep sea. It talks about what happened to sharks. It talks about people who are working to preserve the shorelines. But it also comes with a teacher workbook so that you guys can kind of align these videos to your classroom. And we just want to show you this clip of how we do the health assessments on the dolphins, because as we said, students love dolphins. So, but this is just kind of an insight into the video for you.
Oh, 3 of them.
It doesn't take long before dolphins surround the boats.
One of them split off.
They did split off.
These are year-round residents who rarely leave the bay. This is why they suffered during the 2010 oil spill. Their feeding behavior was adapted to this specific area, so when the oil entered the bay, they stayed, rather than move into safer but unfamiliar waters.
What we're looking to get is small numbers, 1, 2, or 3 animals in workable waters, which is anything less than 5 feet in depth.
4.
We've got a blue tag with 2 or 3 animals coming your way, Eric.
So that's just a little glimpse into it, but this video, actually, this is from Dispatches from the Gulf 2. And it walks you through how we do a whole health assessment on the dolphins. The whole series is narrated by Matt Damon, and Adriana, like I said, dropped that in the chat so you guys have access to download all 3 movies and get the teacher workbooks associated with them. I don't know why it does that. Sorry. And then we also have some worksheets that you guys are able to download and implement in your classroom. So this is actual data that was gathered after the oil spill. And you can talk to your students about population modeling, which kind of integrates mathematics, but it's basically using scientific data to kind of gather how long it will take a population to recover after a big event. So this whole population modeling spread data was how long is it going to take the dolphins in Barataria Bay to get their population to where it was pre-oil spill. And based on this graph, it's about 50 years. But this whole worksheet kind of walks your students through analyzing graphs, thinking critically. So this is something we created to align with the oil spill lessons. Go ahead. And we work with lots of other species around the world. Go ahead, Celeste. Some of which are down in Mexico, Argentina, but also some that are right here on the West Coast. Go ahead. So one that is very near and dear to our hearts is actually the world's most endangered marine mammal that a lot of people have not heard of. It's called the vaquita porpoise. It's often referred to as the panda of the sea, not only because of the markings on them, but also because they kind of represent a whole ecosystem. They represent the preservation of a whole area. And vaquitas are only found one place in the entire world, just south of us in Baja California, just a few hours south. And the main threat to their existence is being caught in illegal gill nets. So this is not only a species that a lot of people haven't heard about, but it's also the world's smallest and most endangered marine mammal. Go ahead, Celeste. Additionally, we have the Franciscana dolphin, which is off the coast of Uruguay and Argentina. And these guys have a few threats as well, not only fishing entanglements and fishing gear, but also habitat destruction, habitat fragmentation, and then water pollution as well. And when adults get entangled in these nets, the babies often have to be rehabilitated. And it has been found that these animals are very hard to rehabilitate. So, we need to preserve the species because they contribute to the balance of the ecosystem. But again, one of the reasons that this species is declining is due to human activity. Go ahead. The North Atlantic right whale, one that's right here in the States. There's about 630 of them left on Earth. They're one of the biggest, most gorgeous whales ever, and their biggest threat is getting caught in crab nets and fishing gear and things like that. So again, decline of a species due to human activity. And then finally, the southern resident killer whale, which is up in the Pacific Northwest. These guys are actually the largest of the dolphins. You can apply the echolocation lesson to these animals. They can be found in every ocean in the world, but the southern resident killer whale is one of the most endangered marine mammals and one of the most endangered species in the United States. They live just in Puget Sound up in Washington State. And a few of their threats are lack of food, noise pollution, so you can incorporate a bioacoustics lesson into that, and then contaminants via runoff. Go ahead, Celeste. And so this is one of my favorite activities, basically taking your students, breaking them into groups, teaching them about all these different animals, all the different threats to these endangered marine mammal species, and then encouraging them to come up with solutions, right? So splitting your students into groups, assigning them an endangered marine mammal, and have them be biologists by understanding why the species is endangered, why it is declining, and then being engineers and using their noggins to invent ways to preserve species. And depending on the age, you can do all kinds of things with this, right? So if they're younger kids, maybe have them invent a product to help mitigate, noise pollution or fishing entanglements or whatever. If they're older kids, you can even dive into the social sciences, have them understand the balance of coastal fishing communities, the conflict with marine mammals, or even have them dive into policy. This is a great way to introduce endangered marine mammal species to your students, and then encouraging them to be not only conservation biologists, but also engineers and social scientists. Go ahead, Celeste. And then the final part of this, I know we're running out of time, so I'll just be quick with this. We get a lot of questions from teachers or students. I have a student who wants to be a marine biologist. I have a student who wants to work with dolphins. I have a student who wants to be a vet. Where do I send them? What do they do? And so we at the Navy actually have a marine mammal internship that we offer to college students. Or if they're in veterinary school, we actually offer residencies and things like that. So they come to San Diego and they actually do all the hard work, from waking up early doing fish house to being on the water with the animals. It's a really great opportunity for people students who want to get into marine biology. Go ahead, Celeste. And then finally, you probably have some students who want to be a marine mammal vet, and we want to give you guys the tools to point them in the right direction. Go ahead, Celeste. So what it takes to be a marine mammal veterinarian. Go ahead. You have to get a doctorate degree, just like a normal vet. So you get your 4-year bachelor's degree, then you go on to veterinary school and go through another 4 years of schooling. There's no straightforward path. You don't go to a marine mammal vet school. The people who are marine mammal vets, like our directors and our veterinarians, went to Iowa State, Cornell, Purdue, Michigan State. They went to inland colleges, same schools that your cat and dog veterinarians went to. And then after they go to veterinary schools, when you really start to direct your path. So I'm gonna stop talking and I'm gonna let the woman who's lived it and done it speak for herself, since she couldn't be here with us, but hear it from the horse's mouth, so to speak.
Hi, my name is Ashley Barrett-Clough, and I am a conservation veterinarian with the National Marine Mammal Foundation. And this is Banksy, my rescue dog. And I'm here to talk to you today about how to become a marine mammal veterinarian. Well, the first thing is to get into veterinary school. And I've had several students ask me in the past of which school should I attend to be able to be a marine mammal vet. And the answer is, if you're fortunate enough to have a choice between veterinary schools, then congratulations. But realistically, it doesn't matter which school you go to. You need to be a veterinarian at the end of the day before you can be a marine mammal veterinarian. So I wouldn't be too concerned about whether your school has a track record of having an aquatic animal health program. You really can try and tailor your experiences and internships and externships and opportunities in the aquatic animal field to be able to get you the experience that you need to become a marine mammal veterinarian once you graduate. So
For me, I went to the Royal Veterinary College in London, and this school does not have a specific aquatics program, but I was able to undertake different experiences in husbandry and care of marine mammals during my time as a vet student to be able to use that to help me enter the field once I graduated. So I did some externships with manatee care, which helped me to do manatee rehabilitation once I was graduated. So once you have graduated with your vet degree, you've basically learned how to treat one of the 5 main species. And the really cool thing about working with marine mammals is that you can apply this knowledge, whether it be from cats or dogs, horses or cows, to marine mammals. So ultimately what you need to do is to be a competent veterinary surgeon prior to working with marine mammals. So gaining experience, whether that be in a small animal clinical internship once you graduate, so that you can be a confident veterinarian and be able to use your clinical skills to diagnose conditions, find treatments, and to basically then apply all of this to marine mammals in the future. There are several different opportunities. In America, it's often recommended to do a small animal internship once you graduate, but you could go into clinical practice, a private practice, and just gain some experience in becoming a good vet. And then once you feel confident in that, potentially going down a residency opportunity where you can learn marine or zoological or aquatic species at that level. I personally went through a different path. And the nice thing with marine mammal medicine is that there is no set route that you have to take in order to get into this field. The main thing that you need to do is to network and to meet people along the way. And one of the best ways in which to do this are conferences. So something like IAAM, which is the International Aquatic Animal Medicine Conference. And this allowed me to meet other veterinarians that had similar interests that also wanted to work in this field, and to meet people that were currently working in the field that I could learn from their experiences. So I personally undertook a master's after working in rural England doing mixed practice for 3 years. I went back to school and I did a master's in wild animal health. And this allowed me to transition from being a domestic animal veterinarian into being an aquatic animal veterinarian. And so throughout my career, I have worked in zoos or aquariums, with wild animals, with field work. There's lots of different opportunities that this field can offer you in which ways that you want to go. And I think a lot of us are not necessarily in the position where we're able to undertake unpaid internships or to take some of that experience. But I think trying to include some of that into your education within your veterinary degree and doing the externships that you have the choice of where you're able to go, trying to do those in an aquatic field or potentially in a zoo or aquarium will provide you with the level of experience that you need to know what this field is all about. And the amazing thing with working with marine mammals is not only how smart they are and how different they are, but is how the core principles and a lot of the physiology is still very similar to what you already know. So you can really apply that knowledge to the new animals that you are working with, which is really exciting. And the opportunities from a conservation standpoint are really just endless to be able to take this work and knowledge and apply it to wild animals and hopefully make a difference. It's a really satisfying field to be in. And working with the National Marine Mammal Foundation has really helped me to expand my knowledge in those areas, which is awesome. And I think that talk put Banksy to sleep. So I hope that you enjoyed it. And I'm sorry I can't be there today to answer your questions live, but please feel free to email me at ashley.barrettclough@nmmf.org if I could answer any of your questions moving forward. Thank you. Good boy.
So that's just a little bit of insight. You guys can also email us, but we also want to tell you guys, if you have students that are interested in marine conservation, they don't have to be veterinarians, right? That is a big misconception of our field, is that if you want to preserve the planet, you got to be, if you want to work with marine mammals, you got to be a dolphin trainer or a veterinarian. And that's not the case. We're here for a STEAM conference, right? So you can apply these things no matter what kind of teacher you are. We've done these programs for art classes. We've done these programs for English classes. You know, in science, there's medicine, animal care and research and conservation, but technology, when we went out to save the vaquita, when we go out to do those health assessments, we need people to drive boats. We need people to scuba dive. And even now, you know, technology, there's a lot of renewable energy, and someone's got to go out there and see what's happening to marine mammals when they go out to the ocean to build these wind farms in the ocean, right? Like that's part of it. So robotics, lab equipment, even IT at the Navy, all of our stuff is virtual databases and electronic databases. And we would not be where we are without our IT support, our software engineers, our coding experts, engineering, always new technologies. For example, boats that emit less noise. Hint for your students' brainstorming projects. Robotics, deep sea exploration, they're finding microplastics in the deep sea where light doesn't even reach, and humans can't dive that deep. So people are inventing robotics and machinery to study impacts of humans have on the deep ocean. In art, we need to communicate art, right? That can be through drawing, education, writing, graphic design. People communicate conservation messaging through art as well. And then of course, population modeling, all the stats that we run, being a lab tech, that all requires math. So you can see that you can incorporate not only marine mammal conservation in all aspects of your lessons, no matter what you teach, but if you have students that are interested, utilize their strengths to point them down a path so that they don't feel like they're pigeonholed into doing veterinary medicine. So I'm going to let Celeste take it back over. We're almost done. If you guys have questions, start popping them in the chat and we will answer them. Celeste, you're muted.
Okay. Thank you so much, Brittany. A big part of the theme of this conference, and just a big topic in our society in general right now, is diversity and inclusion. So we just wanted to address this a little bit in regards to our organization and what we have to offer as a team. And our organization is actually female-led, and we're comprised of about 70% women. So we're really proud of this and how we can share this with girls and help them get interested in STEM fields. And we just put out an organizational statement on diversity and inclusion, and we're committed to taking, meaningful action to create change towards diversity and inclusion, especially in the marine mammal field. So we offer no-cost education programs in both English and Spanish to make sure that we are reaching everybody who wants to learn about these topics. And then we work hard to work with our partners in our community to reach different populations and different groups all over San Diego. So we work with the Girl Scouts, we work with the Ocean Discovery Institute, the Fleet Science Center, outdoor outreach, so that we can reach different groups of students throughout San Diego and also throughout the country. So if you like anything you saw today, you can go to this QR code. We can send this out. You can also visit us at nmmf.org, where you can find all the materials we share, along with a lot more stuff and videos and information about the science that we do at the National Marine Mammal Foundation. We can come to your schools. We do career panels on marine mammal careers. We offer science workshops on bioacoustics and conservation and diving and all kinds of things. We can host webinars and we can do assemblies for your school. So feel free to contact us about all of these opportunities so we can help you implement this material in your classroom. And then special coming this summer, we're actually going to be hosting a teacher workshop to help educate the teachers about how they can incorporate more of this information. So please share this information with your colleagues and coworkers. There's the link to our website right there for information in the downloadable materials. And then you can follow us on Facebook and on Instagram to learn more about the latest things we're doing. Coming up next week, we have a scientific snapshot, a webinar from one of our conservation scientists all about stress in marine mammals and what it is and how we learn about it. So I encourage you to take a look and sign up for those events.